slavery, how the in the US systems benefit family court systems from alienating fathers from the home and from their children as well. As many of you know, I wrote an article a few weeks back on how I'm dealing with child support right now. And the system in the United States is state to state, but specifically in the state of Rhode Island. I've never met my son. He doesn't have my last name, and they still want me to pay child support. So what happened was that I met a woman in China, in the People's Republic of China, in 2010, 11, and I got her pregnant. And I wanted to be a good father. I didn't believe in abortion. She got pregnant, and the doctor at the hospital where we were at actually told her, I can you can have an abortion right now. It can hit you in the stomach, do a few things, and the baby will die. And she was like, no. And her parents also told her, hey, listen, if you come back to the hometown, in China, they have this thing called hometown, where basically you're tied to your hometown for life unless you marry somebody from a different hometown and you take their identity, which I'm not seeing that Chinese, that she would basically have a forced abortion. So I took her out of China because I don't believe in that. My family did believe in that, so they helped me financially. I was really young at the time, still doing my studies in China. And when we came back to the U.S., obviously we were going to go see we were different medical visits to check on the baby and everything. And one of the times they actually told her to go in first and not me, and I was like, oh, whatever, it is what it is. So she actually told me later that they had told her specifically, listen, if he beats you, he does anything to you, we have a place that you can stay at and we can feed you, take care of you. So she understood in her mind, I guess, the US welfare system, she understood in her mind that, hey, listen, I can basically be a bitch to this guy. Because after that, her whole mentality changed. She was mean to me. I was just like, God, she's really rude. All of a sudden, I thought maybe it's because he's pregnant. But then I found out after she had told me that that's why. Because when I went, the plan was for me to go back to China and finish my studies and understand with my family, my mom and my brother. But she did have a round trip flight. So I left first. And then after that, they told her, hey, listen, if you're not comfortable here, you want to go back to be with Mike in China? She said yes. She agreed. Gonna come back on the flight and everything. All things all good. Before the flight, a day before the flight, what happened was that she actually left the house. She walked away with all her luggage. There's a police report and everything documented. Took everything. My family called me and I was like, listen, this is some crazy shit. So she left and they gave her a place to stay and fed her. They basically put her in a homeless shelter for women, and they fed her
Mm.
American food low quality American food that she wasn't accustomed to. So she tried to kick and scream and come back months later, and I was like, no, obviously my child's my child, right? The child's gonna be my life, but not her. So what happened after that was that there was a point where she basically gave the child to my mom, just dropped off the child, my son, at my mom's house, and said, "Take the kid. I have to make my own life. Basically, I have to go out and hoe around. Who knows what it was, or go to school, get certifications, BS." And the kid was a cumbrance in her life. So she did that. She left the kid at my mom's house. Understandable. Okay, no issues. So she comes back 3 days later crying. Oh, I miss my son. We found out that the reason why she did that was specifically, hey, Juicy XD. The reason why she did that was because the government had found out she dropped off my son at my mom's house, and they were going to take her benefits away. So so basically, here we are years later. Okay, I go years without hearing from her. One time she did send me a message like, "Oh, you have to be in your son's life," and I'm like, "Okay, when I get back to the States." But we go to court in 2020. The kid's like 8 or 9 at the time. He's like 12, 13, 14 right now. And she
Mm.
basically said in the courtroom, he's never going to meet his son.
Well,
The court said, hey, whatever, you still got to pay. COVID hit 3 months later. I make like you're saying what you make. Get on everything. They checked it out. They still said we don't give. Basically, they said fuck you. Paraphrasing. They didn't say that, but they were like fuck you. You still got to pay.
mm.
Make up the difference of all the money that you owe. We're not going to modify the child support, which everybody finds weird. This has had really bad luck with judges, I guess. And I'm paying lawyers at the time. And recently, basically, I went to a situation where it was like, oh, okay, we've been so far away from the situation with with COVID and the lockdowns that if you can't pay at this point, we'll appoint you a lawyer. And the lawyer basically was like, yeah, they can't arrest you unless I'm they're present with you. It's a Supreme Court case in the U.S. where basically in family court they can't arrest you because remember, keep in mind, they can't arrest you for not for owing child support. That is against the Constitution of the United States of America. It is against the Constitution to arrest you for owing a debt to the state. They arrest you for being in contempt of court, not hearing the judge's orders. But keep in mind that this is where we're at. This is where we're here today because this isn't fucking right. And I wanted to take a stand. I'm writing articles with different organizations. I'm talking to people. There's only so much I can do. We're in a very masculine men society. At the end of the day, this is why we have passports to leave the fucking country. I'm not saying I'm doing that. I'm just saying that this is why men are leaving because they're seeing that it's unfair to have a family here in the U.S. where they can, in specific states, especially, they can take your children away from you. I've never met my son. He does not have my last name, but the court still wants me to pay over $100,000 for a kid I've never met, doesn't have my last name. They don't want me to meet. And when I went to lawyers specifically, and I was like, "Listen, I want to meet my son," they were like, "Listen, any judge at this point will say that you're traumatizing your son by wanting to meet him. They will not grant you that wish, but they want you to pay." So this is
wild, yeah.
This is modern. This is worse than slavery. Because during slavery, Sully, I'm not sure if you know this. During slavery, the slaves gave the slaves housing. They gave them food. This is a situation where you could be homeless and without food, and as long as you're paying, they're okay with that. So it's actually beneficial to the state. Remember that the state governments in the United States, a lot of the prison systems are run by venture capitalists, investors. The more people the inmates they have in the prison system, the more the government gives them, the more profit they make for themselves and their clients, high net worth clients. So that's this main topic of the story. I'm gonna let you ask questions, Sully, because I know that. Listen, most men. I'm not specifically saying you, Sully. Most men want to get married. You live in the UK. The UK is a place that's similar to the US. Why? Because a lot of the laws they passed here in the US, they passed these laws in the 90s to criminalize not paying child support. By the way, it didn't always exist this way. It was specifically in the 90s. Whatever happens in the US tends to happen in the UK and Canada. So you guys do have similar laws to us. I think the UK might have even more laws in Canada. So before anybody gets married, I like to say two things. My personal opinion. This is my personal opinion. I have two laws right now in life. Never get married. Always DNA test. I'll repeat. Never get married. Always DNA test. You do not have to get married in 2025. Actually, you haven't had to get married in the US for a while to have children. Because what fucked me over was marriage. If I wasn't there when my child was born. If I had not been married to her, then I would not be in this situation. Because in the US and the UK, they assume, even if you're not there, let's say that Sully or let's just pick you, Sully. You're married to a woman, right? You get married right now. You guys separate. 5 years from now, you two have children. Well, 5 years from now, she has a children with another man. She never legally separated from you, right? They find out that you're married, you're on that birth certificate, and you're liable for child support. That's how the laws work. These are really old laws because this was back in the day when there was no internet. People didn't move. Communities formed.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, these that's the parts of those are like the DNA testing part. They've changed it in some states where now they're like, okay, DNA test. But there was a time 5-6 years ago where even if you took a DNA test and it proved it wasn't yours, they're like, well, somebody has to pay for the child support. You're gonna go to prison if you don't pay. We don't care that you're not the father legally. The law is the law. They love to say that the law is the law. They don't like to say, hey, listen, every person's different. Every scenario is different, and we don't know. We need to know all the facts. We got to adjust the situation to the reality. Nope, the law is the law. And also depends. It's the judge's discretion. Family court does not have due process in the sense that there's no judge. Does not have discretion. There's no in the family court system. There's no due process in the sense that the lawyers, they're there, the judge is there. However, there's no jury and there's no presumption of innocence. Remember, you're going to jail if you don't pay child support for contempt of court, which means not listening to the judge. There's no innocence or guilty. So you have to be careful. Yes, hey Luca. So definitely let's go forward. Sully, what are your questions specifically with regards to the situation? 'Cause I know you want to learn, and keep in
Yeah.
mind that
So
other men are listening to your story in the UK, and the US, and other countries.
yeah. So obviously, like, I know that's a lot of these things are pretty messed up in the UK as well, especially with like with like child support and like you having to pay for a child that might not be yours as well. So there are similar situations actually happen in the US and the UK. But one of the questions that I had for you was, and obviously, her parents basically wanted to have an abortion, and is that because she was not from the child was not from her village or something like that?
No,
Was
it
that
wasn't because
basically
of
what
that.
her?
It wasn't because of that. It was because in China they have forced abortions up to the moment of birth, abortions, and we were not
Yeah.
married at the time. And on top of that, where she's from in China, again, where she's from in China, they're still extremely racist towards people like us that are
Oh,
not.
okay.
If she would have been with a white man, again, this is China. This isn't a really.
Mm.
This is like their version of Alabama or
Yeah.
Mississippi, a very impoverished area. If she would have been with a white boyfriend at the time, even if not married, the family would have celebrated. Everybody would have been happy, 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 enjoy, joy. But that's why specifically
Mm.
because they didn't want to have a black grandchild because that would, to bring dishonor to their family and the village. And the village is like a village where everybody back in those days, our parents' era, 50s to
Yeah.
70s, like a lot of the people in China, they have like 9, 10 siblings and stuff. So there was just basically the town where she's from is like everybody's her aunt or uncle. That's the
Yeah.
first question. Next.
Yeah. So next question is like, so I take it that her relationship with her parents was quite good, or would you say is a bit rocky because of the situation that she was pregnant?
At the moment, it was pretty rocky because first thing, if it's the U.S. at least, right, and let's just say honestly, if it's the U.S. and somebody gets pregnant, I mean, nowadays, especially in the East Coast, West Coast, obviously the Midwest is different because people get married in the Midwest. They're more
Mm.
traditional in the Midwest and the U.S. People are so common to see 19-year-old housewives and 20-year-old husbands having children together.
Yeah.
People get pregnant here, and there's no racism or anything happening. Generally speaking, people are pretty happy. Oh, look, they're having a kid, right? Uh,
Mm.
so it's just a cultural difference, right? That in China, it's still because in China legally, if two Chinese people have a kid and they're not married, that child
Yeah.
is basically a nobody. He can't get the equivalent of. He's basically society doesn't recognize him as a person. He's not much different
Oh
than
wow.
them. Yeah, so that's why there's a lot of forced marriages and a lot of forced abortions in China because of situations like this. But
Interesting.
yeah, that's just a legal cultural difference. So that doesn't really you're not marrying a woman from China anyway. You're Muslim, so I can say that. So you're gonna have people. We had Ramadan videos. So with your situation, you're gonna marry somebody from the UK or somebody from Pakistan or Saudi Arabia. I'm just saying
Yeah,
for example. So it's not.
it'd be from the UK in a situation, and it'd be more or less like an Islamic marriage than an actual like full contractual one. Because obviously,
But the thing
marriage
is, but
isn't.
the thing is this: I was married in China, right? And those documents were valid in the U.S. Most countries,
Yeah.
they any you can get married in North Korea and it's still valid. That's the one thing. The second thing
Mm.
is if you guys have a ceremony, the government,
Yeah.
and at least in the U.S., I'm thinking similar in the U.K., they can make a case for, listen, you guys were married. There's pictures and everything.
Mm.
Obviously, there's proof.
Yeah. So sometimes they want like official like registration of it.
Definitely.
Because yeah,
They do,
but
but
there
even
are
there
cases
was
as well.
there's a famous streamer, a famous YouTuber or streamer that he did never marry his girlfriend. They just lived together, right? And she left, and she took him to court, and she was like, "Listen, we live like we were married." She didn't
Mm.
win it, but that's because he had a good amount of money and good lawyers. But the point is that they can still take it to court, especially with I believe it's common law marriage in the state of Rhode Island, for example, where this is happening.
Yeah.
Living 7 years together is considered common law marriage. That means that basically you are married in the eyes
Mm.
of the law, which means she
Yeah.
can take half of your stuff. She can make your life a living fucking hell, child support, everything. And the UK does have common law marriage to a certain extent as well. So you
Yeah.
don't even
It's
have to
called
necessarily.
cohabitation though. Yeah.
Yeah, so exactly.
Cohabitation. That is.
You don't have to legally sign any contracts. You just have to either
Mm.
again, if you especially if you show evidence of pictures of you guys had a ceremony and you guys lived together for a certain amount of year, you're fucked.
Mm.
You go to family court. as a man.
Yeah. That's interesting to know. I'll definitely keep note of that. And so obviously you were studying your master's in China while she went to the US. How come? I take it
I specifically brought her personally to the U.S. Yes, and
so
I
that
left her with my family. We had agreed to it. This wasn't something where like I abandoned her. We had agreed
yeah,
to it. But go ahead.
mm, yeah. So I mean, must have been quite difficult. And did she get along with your family as well when she lived there?
She
Would
did
you say?
until she went to the court appointment. We went to the appointment, and then she suddenly started acting weird. Basically, she started acting like a little brat after the
Yeah.
hospital had told her, "Hey, listen, we can take care of you. You don't have to be with them." Yeah, she started acting like a little brat. So after that, she
Oh,
wasn't. She
I
had.
see.
Yeah, after that, I didn't have a good relationship with her after that because again, when a lot
Mm,
of you understand about like a lot of feminist systems in the United States and I believe in the United Kingdom as well is that
mm.
women act that way because the laws support them, right? If there's an
Absolutely.
argument,
Yeah.
for example, let's say that you call the cops because she's hitting you, the cop. If you call the cops, the man is more likely to get arrested, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've
Because
heard about
yeah.
that.
So in
Mm,
countries like, unfortunately, it is what it is. A lot of women are going to be upset if they see this. I say this about it, but the reason why you don't hear a lot of these cases happening in Africa or Latin America or
mm.
certain parts
Sometimes
of
in the
the
Middle East.
Islamic world is because women don't have the court systems in those countries that support them. They're like, listen, if you have a family issue, that's between you, right? In the
Mm,
Islamic world, if a man and a woman are gonna get a divorce, the woman can't divorce the man. The man just says, "I divorce you," and that's it, and he keeps the children, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And
Mm,
I believe it's in Georgia where if like if there's a divorce, whoever has the more money keeps the kids, which is usually 90% of the time or more the man whoever makes more money. So what do you have a situation there where you don't have as much divorce because women are like, listen, if I get divorced, I'm out on the street and I don't keep my children, right? My
mm.
parents' country, the Dominican Republic, there is family court, but the thing is this: if there's family court and the man owes welfare, the woman's not going to get a free house to stay. There's no welfare state. A woman
Yeah.
can't live off a little man. The small salary is there. She can't live off a little percentage of the man's um, child support. So
Of
there's less
course.
of an incentive to want to leave. The U.S. and the U.K. incentivizes the women to do things like this. Is what I'm saying. The legal
Yeah.
system.
And big. Yeah, absolutely. And because the legal system's incentivized, they have no reason to behave good either. So that's why they just do whatever they want because it's in their favor. And no matter what they do, they don't get punished for it either.
That's correct. It's in their
Mm,
favor. They don't get punished for it, and it's fucked up. But that's just how it
mm.
is. It's in their favor, and again, like you said, it they don't get punished for it. They get rewarded for it. Again, they rewarded her for doing that. I've talked to family court lawyers and family court documents, documentaries, and they've actually said when we see people getting married in the US, they
Yeah,
see inventory. You know what inventory is for a business? It's like when you
of
have
course.
products and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. So you have to understand that the systems in the US aren't made for people to stay together. I remember there was one state that wrote a law a few years, like this was when I was a kid, I think, where they basically said, hey, if you want to get married, you need 1 year, what do you call it? 1 year mediation as well. Like you have to go to a psychologist for 1 year to talk. Which, by the way, psychologists in the U.S. also are very pro-feminist, so they're always going to take the woman's side, and they're going to want the man to be
Absolutely. Yeah.
feminist. Yeah, but the
Mm,
whole court system in the U.S. is based on the fact that women are emotional. Because most men, my mom told me that. My mom's a woman. She told me this. I'm not sure if you know this. Most men, if they're happy in a relationship, their needs are being met, sexual needs, they're getting fed, the house is being cleaned, the woman's not cheating on them. Most men, generally speaking, are not going to leave their wife.
yeah.
However, women can be incentivized to leave the man. Feminism, you're oppressed, and women emotionally when they go through a lot of hormonal changes. For example, did you know like when you and I get stressed, we deal with it, right? Our
Yeah.
bodies are made to deal with it. We're made to kill, hunt,
Mm,
be under stress. Women have it different. When women
mm.
get stressed out, they lose hair, they get their physiology changes, they get it's not stress is not healthy for them.
Yeah.
So you have to understand, we're meant to deal with stress. We're meant to deal. If there's a problem, what do? We Figure out how to solve it as fast as fucking possible, so it's not longer a problem. What does a woman do?
Absolutely.
Complains. While she's complaining for hours, nothing gets solved. The problem is still there, and if not, it grows. So you
Yeah.
have to understand that being based on that,
Mm.
remember, we don't want problems in our lives. Women complain about problems. So who's more likely to get a divorce if there's an issue? A woman.
Yes, it's likely it's a woman. 80% is percentage-wise as well.
That's not a coincidence. That's a fact because women are more
Mm.
emotional than men. Well, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And so a lot of these things aren't really in men's favor. So people who are looking to get married and stuff, you do have to choose very wisely. But also, it's better off to live in a country that it doesn't have laws that are screwed against you either. So
That's the one
it can be a bit tricky.
that's
But
one
if
thing.
you,
That's one thing because
yeah,
women are women, right? Women are you're right. Women are women. It's not the woman because
yeah,
people like my mom like to blame my ex. Oh, because she's from China, Chinese woman. No, I'm like, mom, forget that. Fuck that. That's not because she did it. She did it because
yeah,
the laws of the country allowed her to do it. Because when we were in China, I tried to break up with her because she told me that she was gonna like
mm,
commit suicide, and I left. And for 3 days, she waited in rain. And think about this: she waited in rain. She didn't sleep for 3 days, just
wow,
waiting outside my house and telling people she's waiting basically until I come back. 3 days.
wow.
In the
That was in
U.S.,
China as
she
well.
left because in China she doesn't have the welfare state. This is before
Mm,
we found out she was pregnant. In China, she didn't have the welfare state. If she left me, she's fucked.
mm.
No, go
No,
ahead.
absolutely. Yeah. It's very interesting because when you have laws that are stacked against someone, it changes the behavior of someone too, and it's very interesting how when you flip the script, when it's not in their favor, they start begging to come back to you and stuff. Yeah, but
Definitely. Yeah.
yeah, so I remember obviously reading your story. You said in 2020, you offered to pay more in like child support, um, as just before the pandemic hit, and obviously, you lost your job because of that. But how did
In
like
part, I was in the process of changing careers. I'm being honest. I had left
yeah,
a few weeks after the court. I had left that job, and that was fine because I was actually going to start rugby coaching. That was like the more the career that path that I was going to take because I had a startup at the time idea, and I was like, oh, I can rugby coach and I have less stress than working in the tech space. But go ahead.
mm, yeah. So what was the reason for were you wanting to offer to pay more child support? Does
Because
it
I was trying to
reduce the
be
overall debt that you have for?
No. I didn't have child support at that moment. I didn't have any child support. I said that because I wanted to be a good father because I hadn't been in his life. So I'm thinking, and even the court even said it. He was like, the judge was like, "Hey, listen, he deserves to be in his father and his son's life. You guys should talk it amongst yourselves." The
Mm,
court was like, she wanted more money, right? And the court was like, "Listen, he's
mm,
already paying more than we actually suggest he pays. So what's the issue?" And she just
yeah.
kept screaming and crying in the court. He's a horrible person. He left me. He abandoned me. Again, I didn't abandon her.
Yeah.
Legal documentation saying she abandoned me. But yeah, like nobody ever asked her in court, like, how did she get to the US? Nobody ever asked her that. She has an accent when she speaks English. But nobody ever asked, how
Mm,
did you get to the US? Nobody ever asked that. Nobody's ever once ever asked that question because I'm the one that brought her here. So if she says
yeah.
that, that's where the argument starts to maybe the reason she hasn't said that because when she says that, that's when the argument starts to crumble. Okay,
Yeah.
then if he brought you here, why would he abandon you? That doesn't make any sense. And then people start asking
Of
questions.
course.
Okay, she left me. Oh, he didn't leave me. He left me. I didn't leave. I didn't leave him. Oh, this I have police documentation. Like that you left me. Yeah. So so yeah. That's again. That comes back to even there was one time my lawyer actually even said, "Listen, all you guys do is talk to my client and ask him how much money he makes. You ask him for evidence. You never ask about her financial situation. Never once. She's married.
Mm,
Well, she's not married legally because then that would complicate things. She's pretty smart on that aspect. She's living with a new man who
mm,
she calls her husband. They've been together for like 5, 6, or 7 years. They have
yeah.
two new children together. The court doesn't know. They don't care because what would happen if she gets married and let's say the new man adopts my son? I'm off the hook for
Mm.
child support. So she obviously is not going
Yeah,
to
I've
do
heard
that.
about that. Yeah. It's basically his
Yeah.
problem. Yeah. Yeah.
So she calls it her husband. They live together and all that. But yeah, go ahead.
Yes. So it's like And obviously the child support payments can be quite high. And the thing that's really crazy about it is like it goes all directly to her, so she can literally spend that money however she wants as well. There's no like
That's correct.
thing. There's no thing about actually on like how it'd be spent on the child at all. So she can literally neglect the child or
Listen,
not feed him
listen.
properly.
When you see all these celebrities, right, that are paying child support, they're paying like $200,000 in child support a month, $1 million in child support a month. You really, really, really
Mm,
think about going to the child? There's this one chick, Ashley St. Clair, who got married. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that. She got pregnant by Elon Musk. You know, has like baby mamas now. And
yeah,
when I had met her, she was a simple girl. She was really cool. She wasn't like whatever. Elon Musk has been giving her apparently the past couple of years since she had the baby, like on the low, not with family court involved, like a million something
yeah,
dollars, like $2.2 million. She showed up to a New York Knicks game, wearing Balenciaga, which is expensive clothing. So you
yeah.
really think that like the $1.2 million that came in for like the past, that he's been paying her for the past a year or 2 years has gone all to the kid? I mean, let's be realistic, bro.
Of course, yeah. It's like 90% of it probably just goes all to herself, yeah, to live her lifestyle and
Do
live,
their hair, and women support that on
quite
social media. They're
lavishly.
like, "Oh yeah, you have to understand that as mothers, we have to, do our nails, we have to do our hair." One time, my ex-wife emailed me when I was in China, and she was like, "Send me money. My tire blew on my car," and I was like,
Right.
"That's not the baby." She's like, "Well, if you don't send me money to fix my car, I'll take you to court." Bro, like,
You're literally giving money to live your lifestyle. It's like they just don't want to spend any extra from their own hard-earned cash. That's the difference. And the craziest part as well is like they don't even pay any tax either. It's out of
not
tax
child
from
support, no,
your
child support.
pocket.
Child support is not. Yeah, that's another thing about the situation in the U.S. We have pre-tax salary, gross salary, then you have like the post-tax. So
Mm,
in the U.S., the child support is calculated on gross earnings before the tax is taken out, which is stupid, obviously, but it is.
yeah. Yeah, so it's like you have all these businessmen making six figures and all that stuff. They have to like work really hard to find out their taxes, and they just get their money like you just hand it to them, not having to worry about paying it. So yeah, you're right.
There's
It
people
is
in
a
New York
bit
City. There's people in New
stupid.
York
Yeah,
City that are making like, let's just say $200,000, for example. Let's say they have to pay federal income tax, state income tax, city income tax. Um, and then after that, they got to pay their rent, which is fucking high.
mm,
Maybe after $200,000 a year, you're left with $60,000 a year. Now you got to pay $30,000 of child support. Welcome,
that's what I'm trying
welcome
to
to,
say.
yeah, welcome, yeah. And this is why a lot of men struggle. There's people commit suicide. One of the highest reasons, one of the highest causes of death for men in the U.S. I think it's either the highest or the second highest is suicide. And
Yeah,
I believe that 20%, again, of what we know of, they estimate at least around 20% of that is because of child support.
yeah. No, I wouldn't be surprised. And then the other percentage would be from alimony payments and divorce too. A lot of guys commit it due to that reason. I've heard,
Yeah, it's
but yeah, child support is one of them
a
too.
successful medical doctor that committed suicide because they told him to pay an amount that he didn't have. I don't know if you know this. If the movie Fast and the Furious, Tyrese Gibson, the actor, he actually is
Yeah,
in jail. I'm not. He may still be in jail because the court ordered him to pay money based on, like, they did their own math, right?
yeah,
Mathematics. They did their own math and they estimated how much he was worth, and they told him to pay the amount of money. And basically said, "Listen, I don't have the money," and they put him in jail. And he was telling people to go protest for him, and he was so broke at one point that even Will Smith, I guess he's bad with his finances. Even Will Smith had to lend him money at one point, but he didn't have the money. But the
no way.
court, again, there's no jury. It's just the judge and like the clerks
Yeah.
decided that they wanted to do the math on their own, and that would happen. Like, oh yeah, you owe $200,000 a month. He's like, well, my bank, I barely even have fucking $100,000 to live. I gotta pay rent. I gotta. They don't care, by the way. When you say you have to pay rent and you have to feed yourself, they don't care. It's like, get the
Yeah, it
money.
just goes right through their ears. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
my
don't care
lawyer,
at all. Yeah,
my lawyer basically said, listen, I don't care if you go steal. He literally said to me, I don't give a fuck if you go steal. Get the money. They're like, well, you can be homeless or we'll leave a place to stay. Like that's how they think. But go ahead.
Yeah, so like, what happens if you like have child support payments, but you decide to like leave the residency and live somewhere else, like another country? Would they still be
Well,
after you for that?
well, listen, that's
They
a
can't
different
exactly
story.
arrest you there, can they?
Well, that's the problem. Okay, they have this thing called legally. They have this thing called the Hague Convention. They have which is tons of countries where basically if they know first they got to find out you're in the country. If they know you're in that country, they talk to the government, the state talks to the secretary of our foreign minister, the equivalent of our foreign ministry in the U.S., and they coordinate with the foreign country. But that's a process that's really long, and I've never heard of a case. I've never heard of a case where they actually extradited somebody because of that. I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure because most people keep their fucking mouth shut. But however, if you're, let's say you have American passport, right, and
yeah,
you go to a different country to escape, you have a problem because you can't get passport renewal if you owe child support. So you're stuck in that country. If you're in a place like, I guess, in theory, I'm not saying I'm doing this in theory. If you're in
yeah,
Canada or something, I guess like that wouldn't be that much of an issue if nobody ever asks. But
yeah.
like obviously, if you're an American living in a place like China or Japan, you can't be there forever.
Mm,
They don't
course,
allow,
yeah,
especially China. So there was somebody that had an issue with that. Actually, I read online an article where basically he owed child support for years in the U.S. and he had basically issues getting a new passport, and it was a mess. But yeah, in
yeah,
theory, if like for you, let's say that you are, just say for the sake of argument, you have a United Arab Emirates passport, and you have a British passport, and you owe child support in
mm,
the UK. In
yeah.
theory, if you move to the UAE and use your UAE passport, your UAE ID, and you keep your mouth shut and nobody finds the fuck out, you're good to go for the rest of your life.
As in, like, you don't let the government know or someone
You don't
else
let her
know
know.
that you moved.
Let her know. Remember, the child support is the woman. The state does it on behalf of the woman, but it's the woman. The woman can forgive child support any moment. I have a friend that went to Mexico,
Absolutely, yeah,
and a coworker, and he was in Texas, and he was actually. I was like, "Yeah, but how are you going to leave? You're an American citizen." He's like, "I'm not an American citizen. I came here when I was a kid. My family never gave me citizenship. We never got it." So
mm,
he went to Mexico, and he's living in Mexico. He's living his life. His woman was like, "Hey, you abandoned the family." He's like, "Listen, you ruined my life." The reason why she was put him on child support. Listen, you see again, emotional. The reason she put him on child support, he was in the child's life. He was giving the child money, everything. The reason why she put him on
yeah,
child support was because he went on a date with somebody else. Because they were separated, but like they weren't together, but
yeah.
they
They
were.
just, yeah, it's just the jealousy and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
just want
She
to
was
make your
like,
life hell. Yeah,
exactly. So she fucked herself she shot herself in the foot because he went to Mexico anyway, and he works remote. But I even told them, I was like, listen, she can forgive it. She can go to the court and say, I don't want him to pay anymore, and I'll forgive everything, and they'll forgive most of it. So you have to understand that's a woman. The government does it on behalf, but it's not her. So if you keep your socials, because the people talk. As long as you keep her away from your social media, if you're going to be posting shit that you being, for example, your idea in the UAE, but even with him, he's in Mexico right now, and his girl's in Texas, and I'm
yeah,
sure, I'm sure the girl has told the Texas government, listen, he's in Mexico. But the problem is that Mexico is not like Canada or the UK. They have a lot of issues, bro. Like the government,
exactly. Yeah,
you go tell Mexican government, the Mexican government's like, yeah, he's in this city. Tell the local officials, the local cops will be like, I don't give a fuck. You're not paying me more money to do this. No, I'm being honest. The Mexican, and
yeah.
they're
They're
like,
quite corrupt as well. They can be bribed and everything like that.
yeah, it's
I've
like
heard too.
they're not gonna look for them. The cops don't get paid enough to do that, and they have issues with drug war. Like, no, it's
Yeah,
just we always think we have this concept, especially if you live in the U.S. or the UK or Canada, that the cops are like authority. They stop people for driving. Dude, I was drinking when I was a kid. When I was like 17, with a cop in DR. We him and I just drinking on the block, sitting down on the street corner. He's like, "Listen, Mike, we're both drinking, chilling. Listen, if two people see two
mm,
people fighting and killing each other right in front of me, I don't give a fuck. I'm not gonna risk my life, my issues. I have my own issues to stop
okay,
two
yeah,
guys that I get in trouble now because I'm stopping two guys from fighting. I let them fight it out, and if they have to kill each other, they'll kill each other. That you see, that's how most cops in most countries are. So if you go to countries like that, like Mexico, bro, or like
Yeah.
Guatemala or some shit, or like fucking Brazil, the cops aren't gonna give a fuck.
Yeah. Oh, fucking hell.
Like,
But
yeah,
Brazil's a bad one as
yeah,
well. Oh my god.
it might not even get from the foreign minute. It might not even get from the foreign ministry to the even local level. They might just be like, yeah, sure, we got you, and just throw it out.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay.
So things like that, like you literally have to think outside the box to sort of get away with it. And
Not even, bro.
then again,
Again, if
obviously,
you're
it's a
going
bit
to
of a dodgy thing, but
if you're coming to if you're going to Canada or to the U.S. and you let them know, you're not going to get away. They're going to eventually find you. Ass. It might take years because legalities
yeah.
and all that shit. It might take years. But if you're using
Mm.
your UK passport to buy houses here and stuff like that, you're kind of fucked. But again,
Yeah.
that's a second, third nationality thing. If you have a second or third passport, they make because again, you're using your local documentation to buy local property, right? If the U.S. sends to Mexico, send um they listen, we gotta find this guy. They're gonna send the passport information if they have it. They're gonna send the social security number, which is what we have in the US for identification number. They're gonna send the US stuff. So you have a whole different system
Mm.
out there, you have a whole different identity, you have a whole different
Of
local
course.
system
Yeah.
there. It's not gonna be as easy.
Of course. Yeah.
We have about
It's
10 minutes by the way, so we might have to go through these questions fast. If whatever questions you have to ask me, just ask me fast. I gotta do 10 minutes because I gotta go out.
yeah,
I gotta
absolutely. Yeah.
go out, but
I mean, most of them I've
I'm
pretty
sorry,
much
because I
gone
have to go
through
to
though.
rest.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Okay,
so
go
I've
ahead.
only got like yeah. So with like the such house sports, and did the payments go higher for you from that situation during the COVID time?
Yeah, because they have this thing called interest in the
Well,
U.S. Interest is like basically they pile on. Let's say you owe $10,000. You do the math, right? You owe $10,000. The amount of weeks times the
yeah.
amount of money you owe, it might be $50,000, $60,000 because they pack on interest. They pack on interest. One, to incentivize you to not let interest pack on. Two, they make more money. Money that goes to the
Yeah.
state government systems for child support, most states get paired 1 to 1 to the U.S. dollar. For every $1, for example, if let's say that I talk to my wife and I missed a couple payments, right, in child support, but I
Mm.
give them $200. I owe $200 a month, and then I give it to her directly. I'm like, listen, I want to deal with the court system right now. The court will be like, well, you didn't give it through us.
Yeah.
So the court is like, you didn't give it through us, so it doesn't count.
Oh, I see. So no, that makes sense. So it's just basically and what is like the interest rate? Can they charge whatever they want as well? Then is it?
I have no clue. It's dependent on the state, I think, and
Yeah.
there's a federal like credit card. Like we have interest rates in the Federal Reserve here. You guys have the Central Bank
Mm.
of England. It's based on a lot of different factors, but yeah, right now interest rates are pretty high in the U.S. compared to 10 years ago when they were almost 15 years ago when they were zero. I can't compare.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was a time in the U.S. history where it was like 20% was like, oh, it's not that bad, and now people are complaining about 3%, 4%.
Yeah.
But
So it
now,
could be around 30 or 40% then, would you say?
I don't
And
know,
maybe
but
higher
I
than
did
that.
do the math on that with our life coach, and then the number they gave me, I was like, this is like a lot more than what we did at the math on.
Mm.
And then it was in a lot.
Interesting.
It's high interest rates.
Yeah. So I think it's like one or two questions left, but the other one was obviously like if you were to, one second. So obviously you said that crypto basically that helped you with your financial situation. Could you tell us a bit more about how that
We can't
did it
talk
for
too
you?
much because everything like this is
Yeah.
like, everybody's listening to this, everybody's watching it. But what I have to say is that um throughout this time, I've been trying to pay and I'm trying to fight it. And what they do is they drain your bank, right? They levy your bank, levy your assets. This is where I
Mm.
really got into crypto. So you have to understand. Again, I'll answer it this way: when you owe child support, they go after your bank account. They drain it. They
Mm.
can drain up to $20,000. I'm not the only one this has happened to. This has happened to a lot of people. They drain
Oh
your bank
wow.
account, and they can also levy your property. Like the car that you own outright. Let's say you own it outright. You own a house outright. You never really own it. You still pay property tax. But let's say your
Yeah.
house, right? House equity. They can levy it. They can take it away from you. Your car. They can levy
Wow.
it. They can take it away from you. They can take everything away from you. What's the only asset they can even, and to a certain extent, they can drain your retirement account. By the way, like your retirement account, your pension plan, they are drain that too. And
Mm.
I don't know this, but I'm sure they can do it with stocks as well. I don't know. But my knowledge is this: that the only thing it's funny because we're tying this into crypto as we're a crypto YouTube channel. Um,
Yeah.
the thing with crypto is that crypto self custody crypto. This is on your cold storage wallet with your keys. They cannot take from you because one, the laws don't exist for them to take it from you now. Two,
Yeah,
there actually are laws coming into every state government. Some states have passed, like Kentucky and Wyoming, I believe, and this to a certain extent they're trying to pass it in federal level, where it's
of
right to
course.
self
Yeah,
storage. Right to self storage. The only way they can ask you for your self storage device and is if they show up to your house with a warrant or subpoena. Right,
mm.
give me your self storage keys. And even then, bro. I mean, listen, I've never heard of like. Come on, bro. Like you're gonna go into somebody's house and ask them for their keys. Like, bro, fuck. Like I'm not. Listen, I don't know where my keys are. I lost it.
Yeah,
You know, like how can you prove that? You know, if you get a
absolutely.
device,
Yeah.
you know, this. Let's say you have a Ledger or Ledger Nano, right?
Mm.
You can literally throw a Ledger Nano out or into the ocean. You know that, right? And then you
Of
can go
course.
get
Yeah.
a new one and use your key phrase, your seed phrase that you hit somewhere else to fucking get your crypto back. Like, listen, this is listen, if you're dumb and you're giving them your devices and your keys, bro. And listen, I don't even have a
You're pretty
ledger
much
now.
cooked. Yeah.
Listen, I don't have a ledger. I have stuff that I don't that I have self storage devices and hot wallets that
Mm.
nobody knows that I have. If I go outside and somebody would like sticks a gun to my head, I'm gonna, like, listen, give me your crypto. But like, bro, I can't give it
Yeah.
to you. I literally can't give it to you. I don't have anything on me. Like, there's nothing I can get. There's
Mm.
nothing to give to you.
Yeah. It's kind of like that, really. So, I mean, what I sort of like learned from this story is that, like, even if like the systems rigged against you and all this sort of stuff, is that there's always a way around these type of situations, and it's
To
just
a certain extent,
basically
yeah.
you have to sometimes think outside the box a little bit to um to work around it. Is sort of what I got from that. Yeah,
I mean, you got to be smart
and
about that. I mean, again, I'm not suggesting this, but there's people that like have. I'm fighting, but there's people that have gone to different states and lived their life for like in the US. We have a state by it's a state thing. They've gone different states. They, you only use cash. They only, for example, use crypto. They have a girlfriend that they put everything under her name. They don't have a mailing address. And they just live the rest of their life. They don't have a car. They take Uber everywhere. There's again, I wouldn't want to live like that personally. But there are ways around it. You can go live in the mountains. You can go live
yeah,
off grid.
exactly.
You can go live off grid with your girlfriend and have some kids literally off grid, like 20 miles away in the forest, build a house. It's getting harder
Mm.
because now you have yeah, smartphones detect have they can track you with smartphones. Well, I mean, child support really it's not like an actual crime. It's family court. They can't. It's not criminal, so they can't call the FBI and be like track them with the smartphone
Yeah,
technology. But in theory, they could. Because again,
yeah,
on
in
Batman
theory, yeah.
movie, they were like Batman. I forget the name of the line. We always quote it on X Spaces, but it's like, we get what do you get? We get a bulletproof vest. They get bullets that pierce our vest. Like those things. So like it doesn't exactly. I paraphrase it, but it's kind of like you know as things get better because crypto was created. What was crypto created for? It was created so we can have a peer-to-peer system that the government wasn't involved in, a payment, right?
Mm.
So, this is why the government didn't like it at first. The government has adapted, and we have a president now in the U.S. that is very pro crypto because his family got debanked because of his former
Yeah.
presidency. He was against crypto. He
Oh
was like,
wow.
"Oh, it's not out thin air. It's used for criminals." And once he left the office, our President Trump, his family, his friends and family, the people associated with him, their banks started calling him. Listen, we're closing down your account. So now they're pro crypto. The family's pro crypto, super ultra pro crypto, and because
Yeah.
again they know what it's like. So now, and actually in the U.S., the people that are mostly that own crypto are men under 40 that are Black and Hispanic, by the
Mm.
way, because the system hasn't benefited us for many years, or we felt like it hasn't benefited us for many years, and we've actually
Of
front
course, yeah.
run banks, institutions, and the government for buying crypto. But with that being said, brother, I gotta go in 2 minutes, so let's wrap this up
Of
in like
course, yeah.
2 minutes. I gotta make a Rumble video, and I gotta Saturdays and Sundays,
Yeah,
bro. I'm down.
so
This is all day.
no, that's fine because yeah, those are pretty much all of the questions to be honest with you. Yeah, so it's like obviously I did it in different orders, but essentially yeah, I pretty much asked all the questions that I've wanted to ask you really. And yeah, it's very interesting to hear your story, like personally, like face to face, like virtually, and to hear about your experiences.
Am I gone? Oh.
Yeah, you froze there, but yeah, I said,
20 seconds
yeah, I
and I
can
gotta
hear
go.
you. Yeah, yeah, no, I said like, yeah, I've pretty much asked all the questions that I've had, and like, I don't really have any more from my side, so I can bring it back to you, and have your closing statements if you like.
No closing statements. I gotta get going. So with that being said,
Yeah.
choose the right woman. Vet her first. There was a time. My closing statement is this: there was a time when people used to get married. They used to marry people that they knew from they were little kids, elementary school, middle school, high school. They
Mm,
knew the person. Now we're marrying strangers. In a world where you're marrying strangers, always assume the older the woman is, hey, sounds misogynist or not, the more likely she has a past. If she's 31 and
mm,
she's beautiful and she's like single, ask yourself why she's single at 31. Most of the best
exactly.
women,
Yeah.
my personal life and in general, are married by 22, 23. It is what it
Mm,
is. I have friends that are very wealthy that won't even date a girl past 25. So with that being said, choose the right woman. Don't get married. Always take a DNA test. Upwards and onwards. I gotta get going. Bye.
of course.